We are on 97b, trying to figure out the measurements. So the measurements are usually 1 amma, 6 tachim, except for this verse in Yecheskel that we're trying to figure out what exactly is it referring to, that it was 5 tachim. So we rejected the previous understanding of it being the height of 54 tachim. Then the middle would only be 27, but if you do the math, according to the math, you would be on the ledge of 24 tvachim, and you have an amma, which is 6 tvachim of a leeway for the olas ha'of, and that didn't work out. So rather we say as follows: Ella, about halfway down, 97b, right halfway down. Ella, second last one on the line. So Ella chek, when the pasuk said chek ha'ama, what it was referring to was the knisam. We're going to now talk about those 3 levels, right? We have whatever they are in the picture, but we have the bottom level, the middle level, and the top level. So we thought we were talking about the height of each level, but we're actually talking about the width. So chek ha'ama is the knisam, the knisam part that you go in, meaning it's the width of the ledge. Reichev knisa, when the pasuk says Reichev, so that's referring to the knisa. That's referring to the next level up, its ledge, the width of its ledge, and gvula el svasa saviv is going to be the width of the top. Is going to be the width of the top. So, according to this calculation, let's see if it works out. Platin, it was the halfway point where the red string was platin. Now, from the horn on top down to the ledge where he would stand to do the olas ha'of was how long? Was how high? That was that was 24. That's great. If it's 24 and he does the malika and the blood goes on top of the red string, you have another 6 tvachim down to the midpoint, 6 tvachim, which is 1 amma. Perfect. So how much is left the midpoint of the altar? Shisha. Perfect. And we learned in the Mishnah, he has 1 amma of leeway that's still above the red string. So that's perfect. An amma 6 tvachim, and so that's great to go. We're good to go. Okay. Now we're going to ask on this idea that we're talking about the width of these, the width, not the height, but the width of each section. So says the Gemara, "B'mayu kim te b'knisa." Could you really establish this verse, which tells us where the 5 tvachim amos were, as referring to the knisa means an entrance. What it means when you get up and you enter, so that width part of the ledge. How could you say that? We learned in the Mishnah in Mesechus Midos that the bottom of the altar, the very bottom, how wide was it all around? 32 by 32. Now, that was all around. Now, all the amma, the kanesan amma, that first section on that ledge, it goes up an amma and in an amma. So that area where you could, maybe stand a little bit, that little ledge, you go up an amma and in an amma. So that bottom part, that ledge all around, was going to be now minus an amma. So that's minus 2 ammas, because you have to you go up an amma and it goes in an amma. So you lose a 1 by 1 amma, so it's 2 square ammas. So all the amma v'kinei amma zeh yisod. Okay, so turns out from that ledge all around, that part is going to be now 30 by 30. Now, 1 second. If the width is only 5 tvachim ammas and not 6 tvachim ammas, so if you just lost 2, if you just lost 2 ammas, so and they're 5 tvachim ammas, not 6 tvachim ammas. So it shouldn't be 30 by 30. It should be 30 by 30 plus 2 tvachim. You've now gained 2 tvachim because the whole width is less than what you thought. And the whole width is 5 tvachim, not 6. So therefore, it shouldn't be 30. It should be 30 by 30 plus 2 tvachim. And yet it says it's only 30 by 30. That's the first question. Besu, furthermore, all chamesh, you went up another 5. You went up another 5 amos. The kine sama, and then you went in an amma, and zehu sovev. That's that second level called the sovev. So how much is that? So nimtza. Now you're going up. Nimtza esrim v'shmona al esrim v'shmona. So now you're up to that middle part is 28 by 28. Yeah, 28 by 28. So now, if that middle part, is 28 by 28, well, 1 second. If we're taking away, we're saying that the width of each section was 1 tefach less than, instead of being 6 tvachim for an amma, it's 5 tvachim. So then what happens? Nimtza esrim v'shmona esrim v'shmona. So esrim v'shmona, the arba tvachim havu. You should add 4 tvachim because right, instead of it being 6 tvachim for an amma, it's really going to be 5 tvachim, which means each amma that we're doing, you really have to add an extra tefach. So we start with 32. So we got to 30. Then you have to add 2 tvachim. Now you're getting it to 28. So you have to add 4 tvachim. And yet it only says 28 by 28. It doesn't say 28 by 28 plus 4 tvachim. So now says the Gemara, well, maybe that's not difficult. When the Mishnah referred to 30 by 30 and 28 by 28, it was really not precise. It wasn't talking generally round to the nearest whole number. So 30, 28. So v'chitema came into l'havi amma 2 tvachim, 4 tvachim. That doesn't equal an amma. An amma is minimally 5 tvachim. So v'chitema came into l'havi amma lo chashiv lei. So that's why it didn't count it, but really it's in line with the Mishnah. So now let's go to the top and see if this works out. Makom karanos was amma mizev, amma mizev. The corners, the part that's protruded, they were 1 amma by 1 amma. So now nimtza esrim v'sheish al esrim v'sheish. That means the entire top level of the altar was 26 by 26. So says the Gemara, well, hold on, do the math. We're going from 32 to 26. From 32, from the surrounding area being 32 amas, right? And then the next level was 30 amas in width, and the next level was 28 amas in width, and now the next level is 26 amas in width. But since every amma in width is only 5 tvachim, not 6 tvachim, so at this point, it should be esrim v'sheva havu. It should be 27, not 26. And now you have 6 extra tvachim. Because each width, we're adding a tefach, because it's not, according to this, it's not 6 tvachim for an amma. Rather, it's 5 tvachim for an amma. So each width, we're really adding a tefach. So when you get to 26 by 26, well, remember, we added it. We have an additional tefach of width because we're counting 5 tvachim ammas and not 6 tvachim ammas. And if that's true, so here it's not 26 tvachim by 26 tvachim, it's 27. And now you can't say, oh, the Mishnah wasn't precise, because the whole idea was the Mishnah was not precise when it was less than an amma, and it's not so significant. But here you get to an actual amma, and therefore the Mishnah should have mentioned it, and therefore it sounds like our interpretation is incorrect. So nimta esrim v'shisha al esrim v'sheish al esrim v'sheish esrim v'sheva havu. So it should really be 27. So the Gemara says lo duck. It's still not exactly precise, meaning even though even you pick up an amma, Still, it's low duck. Okay, interesting. Says the Gemara, but this 26 or now 27 by 27 is really the entire top part. However, there was only there was an area of hiluch raglei kohanim ama mizeh ama mizeh. The kohanim could walk around where the pyre was in Amma from here and Amma from there. I mean, they could walk. There's an Amma of space that they could walk. So now nimtza. So that's take away another 2 Ammas. So the actual width of where the pyre was, excluding where the kohanim could walk, was esrim ba'arba, esrim ba'arba. Makam maracha was the makam maracha, but according to your calculation now, that really 26, 27, well then 24 should be 25. And maybe you'll tell me that also, even though it's an extra amma, it still wasn't precise. That's good for a Mishnah, but it's not good for a pasuk. The Haksiv, it says in Yecheskel, Ariel Shtemisrei Orech B'Shtemisrei Rochev. Ariel, the Mizbeach was 12 amos in length by 12 amos in width, a Ravua. So Yachol She'enu Ela Shtemisrei Al Shtemisrei. So you would thought maybe only 12 by 12. Kishu Hu Omer El Arba'as Revav. When it says it's on 4 squares, 4 squared, Melamed Shebe Emtzahu Modid. You're counting from the middle of the pyre, on top of the altar in the middle of the pyre. Shebe Emtzahu Modid. Shtemisrei Amma Lekol Ruach V'Ruach. You go from the middle, and you find yourself to be 12 ammas in each direction. Now, so you see from the pasuk that you start in the middle of the pyre, and you calculate 12 in each direction. That's going to get you 24 by 24. Now, you can't tell me that the pasuk was lodak, because that we don't say. The Mishnayos, maybe to make it simpler, you would say maybe it's lodak, it's not precise. But a verse, you can't do that. Okay. So now, maybe you'll tell me another suggestion. V'chitema shis minayu mikara be'ama bas chamisha ma'isilahu. Maybe you'll tell me that when they made the 32 by 32 amma area where the entire altar is going to be, the entire mizbeach is going to be, so maybe out of those 32, 6 of the amos were only 5 tvachim. So out of the 32 by 32 amos, 6 of those amos were only 5 tvachim. So you have more space. So it says that Gemara, if that's true, Rav Chala Zara, then you're going to have a much wider, courtyard. Meaning, once you're taking away and you're saying that there's more space available, well, now there's more space for everything, more space for walking, more for the kohanim. It's going to extend. Now let's see if that's going to hold true. The courtyard now is going to be bigger than what we thought. Once again, 32 by 32, assuming that each one was a 6 tvachim amma, and now that 6 of them are 5 tvachim ammas, so you have an extra. You shrink it. Correct. Go. You shrink the altar space, and you have more space in the azara. The problem is the Mishnah tells us how much space we have in the azara, and here we go through all the calculations, also found in the 5th chapter of Midos, calculations in the first Mishnah over there. Ditnan, it says the Mishnah, Kol Hazara, how big was the courtyard? Orech Meya, its length was Meya V'Shmona V'Sheva, Arochev Meya Shloshim V'Chamish. It was 187 in length, Amos, by 135 in width. I mean, Mizrach Lamar, from east to west. So, now out of this, Meya V'Shmona V'Sheva, the 187 was the Makom Jerisas Raglei Yisrael, was the area of where the Yisraelim could walk. Achad Esrei Amma, one second. Yeah, east to west was 187, right? Because you're going towards the Kodesh HaKodashim, east to west. The width was north to south. So, Makom Jerisas Raglei Yisrael, the amount of space you had for the Yisraelim to walk was Achad Esrei Amma, was 11 amma. Umakum drisas ragle kohanim hakohanim, and the area that the kohanim would walk, achadis amma, was also 11 amma. Hamizbeach shloshim v'shtayim, the mizbeach was 32. Bein ulam mizbeach, between the ulam and the mizbeach, the holy area, and I think this is talking about the inner altar. Bein ulam mizbeach was esrim v'shtayim, was 22 ammas. Heichal, the area of the whole kodesh, the heichal was mea amma, was 100 amma. Achad esrei amma acharei beis hakaporos, and it was 11 amma behind the beis hakaporos, was behind the curtain. So this is referring to the kodesh hakadashim, no? Yeah, this expression right in the beginning, the beis hakaporos. That's the language that uses. So it was 11. It was 11 after the curtain in the Holy of Holies. Okay, but now what do you see? That had to be 32 amma, right? It had to be 32 amma, or else all the calculations are not going to work out. Now it's interesting. We don't say about this Mishnah lo dak, but that's interesting. The other Mishnah we said it wasn't so precise. This Mishnah we're not willing to say that. That's interesting. Why? Yeah. Okay, so now Ella, back to this verse. Where were the 5 tvachim amas? So Ella, when the verse said the chei ka'ama, that was referring to begova amma. That was the chei ka'ama was you go up from the bottom. When you go up, it's going to be an amma. Chei ka'ama is begova amma, is an amma up. So the amma that is between the ground and that first level, that's a 5 tefach amma. Rochev knisa, so rochev knisa. So the here the width of the sovev of the ledge of the second level is going to be 5 tefachim. So not the ledge of the first level. The ledge of the second level is also going to be 5 tefachim. And then gvula al svasa saviv. The gvula, next page, the gvula al saviv is the board's edge means of the protrusions on top, right? So gvula al svasa saviv is going to be 5 amma. The height of the horn is going to be a 5 tefach amma. Sorry. And now the next page. Then the Gemara says lo shnahaki v'lo shnahaki, meaning the width, their width on top, it could be 5 or 6. Irrelevant. It could be 5 or 6 tefach amma. That doesn't matter. So now, since what we gained was that the width of the bottom part of the altar was 6 tefachim amma. So if you have that, so then what you gained was now, since the width is really a 6 tefachim amma, so now the top width on the top of the altar is going to remain 26 by 26. And the makom of the kohan is going to be an amma by an amma, and therefore it's going to remain 24 by 24, and therefore everything's going to stay the same. So, 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. Since the width of the bottom since we just gained was what? That the width of the bottom level was 6 tefachim amma, not 5 tefachim amma. So now, even though the width of the second level is going to be a 5 tefach amma, but now we only have a few tefachim remaining. So even the Mishnah wasn't 100% precise, but we don't run into a problem that the top of the altar is adding a whole amma, right? Because what we need is the pasuk in Yechezkel told us no matter what that the area of the pyre is 24 tefachim by 24 tefachim. So now, since you just gained back 2 tvachim because the bottom, the width of the bottom is really a 6 tefach amma. So all you have is on top of the mizbeach is 26 tvachim by 26 tvachim, and 4 tvachim left over. And now you can say, since it's not an amma, so then it's not it's not a problem that didn't count it. Yeah. Okay. Now, so now let's put it all together. So Mizbeach Kama Havi, how tall was the altar? Chamishin v'tamya. It was 58 tefachim, like we thought at one point. So yeah. So now if it's going to be 58, so the middle point is going to be 29. So now pocket is Mizbeach Kama Havi Esrim 29 tefachim. Okay. So now, and how much do you have from the top till the area where the Kohen stands when he does the Malika on the Ola Sa'of? So, Mikaros Ad Soviv Kama Have Esrim V'Tlata. It was 23 tvachim. So that's great. So how much do you have left from 23 to 29? 6 tvachim. So now the Mishnah makes sense. Kama Batzir Lepal Gedim Mizbeach Shisa. And we learned in Masol Lemachas Kshera, you have an amma which is 6 tvachim of leeway. If under where you're standing, the blood spurts, even an amma lower than where you're standing, you're still good to go because it's still above the red line, which is in the middle of the altar. Tekanami Diksiv. Also, this makes sense in the verse. Cheik ha'ama, the amma rochev. That the cheik ha'ama is, when we say cheik ha'ama, it's referring to the height, not the width. That makes sense. Why? Because the next part says the amma rochev, and the amma is the width. So this point, the amma is the width. We're talking about the width, but the first part we're talking about the height. So therefore, in this verse, we're saying that the height of the bottom part of the altar, that height is going to be a 5 tefach amma, but not the width. When it comes to the width of the second level, that's going to be a 5 tefach amma. And it even sounds like that in the verse. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So that's that. We conclude these calculations. Now let's see. The kama amma beinonus. So we spoke about this amma beinonus, this middle amma. And what was that? Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shisha Tvachim. That was 6 tvachim. Amar Rabbi Yossi Barabin Afanami Tanina. We also taught this. Rabbi Meir Omer Hashulchan Aruch Shnei Masar. Rabbi Meir holds, not like Rabbi Huda. Rabbi Meir holds it's longer. It's 12 Shnei Masar. Not 12 amos. 12 amos. It's 12 amos. 12 tvachim. Yeah, sorry, 12 tvachim. It's too long to be 12 tvachim. Yeah, 12 tvachim. Shnei Masar V'Rachvo Shisha. It was 12, and its width was 6. So we see from Rav Meir that also that an amma is 6 tvachim because Rav Meir said that all the amos were beinonis. So for an amma to be beinonis, it has to be 6 tvachim. Now, michlal, if the middle-sized amma is 6 tvachim, so Rashi doesn't say it here, but in the Torah it talks about the shulchan being only in amos, not in tvachim. That's how Rav Meir gets a 12, because Rashi on the Mishnah says each it says in the Torah that the shulchan is 2 amas long and 1 amma wide. The Rav Meir says that means that it's 12 tvachim long and 6 tvachim wide, since he says all the measurements were in Amma Beinurnis. In Amma Beinurnis, an Amma was this size of a 6 tvachim. So since he says all the measurements were in Amma Beinurnis, and he says that an Amma is 6 tvachim, so you conclude that an Amma Beinurnis is an Amma which is 6 tvachim. Now, it sounds like if that's a Beinurnis always means the middle. It's the middle. So if this is the middle, if a Beinurnis is the middle, that means that you have an Amma which is more than 6 tvachim. What Amma is more than 6 tvachim? There you have an Amma that's greater than 6 tvachim. Says Gemara, yeah, we do. In the Hatanan, it says in the 17th chapter of Kollel that Shtei Amos Hayu B'Shushan Habira. Now, we're going to see, it doesn't mean that they're talking about the firm story, the capital of Persia. Rather, there's actually a part of the temple that was built on the eastern side, and it had on it a picture of the Persian capital, Shushan Habira. The Gemara is going to give 2 explanations. Why are you drawing a picture on the gate on the eastern side of Shushan Habira? That's very interesting. So we'll see 2 explanations. In the meantime, though, in that area of the base of the Mikdash, they had Shtei Amos Hayu B'Shushan Habira. There they stored things that were two different Amma measurements. Achas al Keren Mizrachis Tzifonis. The Achas al Keren Mizrachis Dromis. One was on the northeast side. The Achas al Keren Mizrachis Dromis. And one was on the southeast side. Shal Keren Mizrachis Dromis. The one on the northeast. Shal Keren Mizrachis Tzifonis is Seira. Al Shel Moshe. It was more than what's called an Amma of Moshe 6 tvachim. How much more? Chetzi etzba. Half a finger longer. Shal Keren Mizrachis Dromis. The one on the southeast was Haisi Seira Allah. Chetzi was even greater than that Chetzi etzba. So do the math. Nimtzeis Yisera al Shel Moshe etzba. You had 6 tvachim. A 6 tvachim is the middle-sized Amma. Then you had one measurement that was half a finger more than that, and one measurement that was another half finger, a full finger more than 6. V'lama amru achas ktana. Why they need this smaller measurement and larger measurement? So, kidei sheyu ha'umnin notlin biktana umachzirin bigdola kidei shloyavu lidei meila. So, the treasurer, really not the treasurer, so the Husbar in the Beit Mikdash, the secretary, the one that was in charge of all the dealings. So he would stipulate with the workers, listen, I need this built 6 Ammas, 5 Ammas, 3 Ammas, 2 Ammas. So what would they do? They were worried that they're getting paid from money from the Beit Mikdash. So if they messed up at all and it was 5 Ammas minus even a tiny bit, but they got paid for a 5 Amma job, so that's Me'ila. They're misusing money from the treasury. So what they had was these different measurements. We'll see for what in a second. That they would do it with a little bit more. So they got paid for a 5 job, but they did 5. But in the Amma, each was really half a finger worth. So every 6 tvachim or 6 tvachim, make sure that they don't the treasury money. Yeah. Okay. So now, what do they need this for? What were they building? The Tarti Lamni. Why 2 different half a finger worth more than an Amma than 6 tvachim, and you needed one that was a full finger worth more than 6 tvachim. Why? One was for silver and for gold. And one was for really the things that they built with wood. So meaning when they would coat things with gold, that was 5 Ammas or 10 Ammas. So then they would do it a little bit more because it's a very expensive job, gold and silver. So you can't waste an extra finger meaning the extra finger measurement of gold and silver. That's very expensive. So you do a little bit, half a finger's worth you added, just to make sure they don't misuse the money of the treasury. However, if you're using wood, you're building things from wood, so that's not as expensive. So that you had more leeway, so that you could add a full finger's worth, not only half a finger's worth to your job, to ensure that you don't misuse any of the money of the treasury, that you didn't do less than an amma, but you did really an amma. So just in case, you added a little bit more to that. Okay, so now, Tanan Hassam says the Mishnah Shara Mizrach, the gate on the east side, Shara Mizrach, Alav Shushan Abira, Tsura, they had a picture of the Persian Empire. So, my time, what was the reason? So, Rav Chisda and Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Rav Chisda and Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi each had different opinions. Why? Chad Amar, Kideshi Yadu Mehechan Bo. Know where you came from. Know your roots. Persian Empire took over the Babylonian Empire, and they came up from there. It's an amazing thing. Every time you go, you're reminded where you came from. The importance to knowing one's roots. V'chad Amar Kidei Shetehei Amos Malchus Alehen. And the other one said that you always have to have fear of that government, of that king. It's important. Fear. It says Rabbi Yanai, you should always have the fear of the government, the fear of the kingdom upon you, so that you shouldn't rebel against them. Shinamar, what's the source? Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu was telling Paro that they're all going to get punished, he said, all your servants are going to come to me. He didn't include Paro in that. Paro was a very wicked king, but still, he said it in a form of respect. He still was able to have some level of fear for Paro. It says in the pasuk in I think it's Parshas Bo, "Vayardu kol avdecha ela elai v'yishtakav li lemor." It says, all your servants are going to bow down to me. They're all going to come down and bow down to me. But he didn't include Paro in that. It's disrespectful. He's telling the king of the whole empire, you're going to come and bow to me. But Yardu kol avdecha ela elai v'yishtakav li, and bow down to me, lemor. But he didn't say you, Paro, are going to bow down to me. So that is that's that. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Mehacha. Rabbi Yochanan says you can learn this out from. It says V'yad Hashem Haisa El Eliyahu. It says that Hashem's hand, so to speak, was on Eliyahu. Vayishneim Masnav. I think it means he girded his loins. Vayaratz lefei Achav. And when Achav was coming, he ran in front of him, meaning to show Achav respect. And so that was out of respect for Achav. Now, what was the respect? Rashi says that it's not proper for kings to go alone. So he saw Achav going alone, so he took his horse and rode after him. Even though Achav was a terrible king. But still, we see with Achav and with Paro, even if the kings are terrible, the leaders are terrible, you still have to show them respect. So, yeah. Now, he followed Achav until he got to the place he was going to, Yisrael. Okay, next part of the Mishnah. It says, no, not yet, sorry. It says, the Aleyu L'Trufa. So, this is talking about the whole image in Yecheskel. No. In Yecheskel, it talks about this whole stream that's going to go, and in the time of the third base of English, I believe, and it says there, Aleyu L'Trufa. It's going to be a trufa. It's going to be a healer. So, what exactly is it going to heal? So, yeah. Say that it says it's a leaf. Maybe that's in Shkolim it talks about this whole mayan, this whole spring, and that's what Rashi brings. The whole spring is going to flow out of the Kachei HaKadoshim, and out of this spring, it goes up through all the measurements, how far it's going to get to in Shkolim. I believe it's the same one, same 47 chapter, yeah. So, from there, it's going to grow the trees, and the fruit of that tree, there's going to be a leaf, and that leaf is going to be a healer. What in the world is this doing here? So Rashi says, Rav Chisda and Rav Yitzchak just argued about what we're just talking about why it says, why there's a picture of Shushan Abira on the gate. So too, we're going to bring this here. So Alei L'Truva, Rav Chisda, Rav Yitzchak, Bar Avdimi. Chadamar. So what's L'Trufa? L'Trufa is really an acronym. It's Lahatir Peh Shelemala. V'Chadamar Lahatir Peh Shelemata. So it's referring to healing. One will be healed above, referring to the miyut will be able to speak, and one is referring to the healing below, that the women who are not able to have children will be able to have children. Whoever eats from it will be healed. Itmar, it says, Chizki Amar Lahatir Peh Ilmim, and Bar Kapara Amar Lahatir Peh Kar. We see two other opinions that fit with this. That one, Chizki says is going to heal the mouth of the mutes, and Bar Kapara says it's going to heal the mouth, heal the womb of the barren. Taner Rabbanon, Ilu Nemros. Now we're going to back to the shulchan, back to the table with the breads. We know that it had two parts, two settings, 6 breads each. So it says in the verse in middle of Vayikra, in Parshas Emor, it says V'lakachta solat v'afisa osa shtei esrei chalos shnei esrei nimiya chala ha'achas. It says that you take the flour v'afisa osa shtei esrei 12 chalos, and then it says v'samta osam shtayim ma'arachos. You can put it on 2 settings. Now it doesn't say you should do 12 chalos, 6 each. Lo namar sheish, because if you would have said sorry, 1 second. V'samta osam, shtayim ma'arachos. Sheish marachos al shulchan. So it says v'lo v'samta osam shtei marachos v'lo namar. V'samta osam shtei marachos. End of the pasuk. V'lo namar sheish. How do you read this next? Doesn't say 6. Okay. V'lo namar sheish. Doesn't say it. Oh, if it didn't say 6. Sorry. If it didn't say 6. Ha'isiom. That's what it is. It says 2. Now it also says each. If it would not have said 6, so then you would have thought you get 8 and 4. Ha'isi omer achas al arba v'achas al shmona. One could have 8 and one could have 4. That gets you to 12. 12 it says 2 settings. It says if it didn't say 6, you would think 8 and 4. L'kach namar sheish. That's why it says 6. Ilu namar shtayim marachos. And if it ilu namar shtayim marachos. Sheish marachos, v'lo namar shtei esrei. If you would have said it had 2 settings with 6, ha'isi omer shalosh al sheish. You would have thought that you could have put you could, if it didn't say these 2 settings with the 6 chalas, you would have thought that you could put 3 settings, 3 settings and put 4 chalas on each, or something like that. You'd have 3 stacks of 6. Sorry. If it didn't say 12, and it just said, if it didn't say, right, and it didn't say 12, you would have thought you could have 3 settings of 6 to the stack. Good. Thank you. L'kach nemar shtei esrei. That's why it said you have to have 12. You can't have more than that. Ve'ilu nemar shtei esrei. If it didn't say it have 2 and 6, you'd have 3. You'd have to 2 stacks with 6 each. Oh, actually, Yomru, Shlosh Makros Halalu, Lo Lamadnu. If I didn't have these 3 verses, I would not know all these dimensions. So HaKetzad, how do you figure it all out? Nosin Shteim Marachos Al Sheishesh. You would put 2 settings with 6 each. The Nasan Achas Al Arba Achas Al Shmona. Well, if you do 4 and 8, Lo Yatsa, you're not Yotzei the mitzvah. Shtaim Shel Sheva. Now, Lo Yatsa Shtaim Shel Sheva. Okay, now we're going to see tomorrow. Let's say you have 2 and you put 7 and 7. You consider that one on top as it's going to invalidate it, or as if it's not there.